Atlanta, Georgia. Man, I love coming here. Back in the 80s when we used to race here, wrestling was huge. And no one was bigger than Ric Flair, the nature boy. I love that guy's style. The way he can make an entrance, and those robes, are you kidding me? Amazing. Now you may be asking yourself about this point. Why is Kyle driving a Dodge Dart? Well, it turns out that a Dodge Dart was Ric's very first car. A friend of mine hooked me up with his. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna surprise Ric with this car, and we're gonna sit down, talk a little bit, and grab a bite to eat on this edition of Dinner Drive. I'm Kyle Petty, race car driver, musician, speed enthusiast. I know where I found my passions in life, but I'm always curious about where others found theirs. And I've figured out over the years, the best way to get to know someone better is over a little food. So I'm hitting the road to catch up with some friends to hear their life stories, and you're invited. Pull up a seat and join us for this edition of Dinner Drive. All right, there it is, Uncle Jack's Meat House. There he is.
Wow.
There he is.
How cool is this?
Woo! Never heard that before, did you?
Just a few times.
How have you been, man?
I've been great, man.
You look great.
Thank you,
look
too.
Great. Look great.
Much respect. Everything good?
Yeah, everything's good, man. So, I brought this little 65 Dodge Dart because I heard this thing, a car like this, had a sentimental attachment to you. So
My first car.
Yeah, tell me about it.
My parents gave it to me in 1968 at graduation. I got it home, and the first day was one of the legendary stories of my life. I was trying to make sure I looked cool smoking a Marlboro, right? And I kept looking in the rearview mirror, top down, riding on the road to meet this girl I hadn't seen since I'd gone away for about 3 or 4 months, right? And I rear ended the car, broke my nose, smashed a cigarette. That was the end of my cool day.
I know you didn't stay in a Dodge Dart very long.
No.
So why don't we head on inside Uncle Jack's here?
Let's do this.
Get caught up a little bit, because I need to catch up on your
flying
life.
and limo riding, right?
Talk about jet flying, limo riding, anything you want to talk about. It's your day, man.
No, it's your day.
Your day.
Kyle Petty in town.
So here we are, man. What a cool place. Yeah. What is special to you about Jack's?
Well, just the relationship we have with the owner. Atlanta continues to grow in restaurants that do well, and this place has got, as you'll find out, has fabulous food.
If we go back in time to 80s, early 90s, and you know, NASCAR and wrestling seem to do this a lot, especially in Charlotte. I don't know if you remember, but 1984, I was a judge.
Of course.
At Starrcade.
Of course.
Smoking Joe Frazier was a referee.
Yeah,
remember that night?
That was a huge event for us,
Yeah.
and I mean, there's no denying your brand, you know, starting with your dad, and then, of course, your success.
What piqued your interest? As you watched on TV, what piqued your interest in wrestling, in the wrestling game?
You know, my dad was a doctor. My mother was involved in, you know, the theater. You know, they didn't have any time for wrestling and didn't really care for sports. But, I mean, they supported, you know, me liking and watching sports. But the wrestling was something they couldn't get into. But, you know, it was on at 6 o'clock. And I didn't miss it. I just loved, you know, grew up loving it. I went from football to wrestling to the hockey game and whatever was on. And then when I ended up going to the University of Minnesota and had problems academically, the opportunity came around, and I just said, I'll give it a try. And nothing like I imagined it would be. I quit twice, but a guy named Vern Gagne stuck with me.
Who inspired you, and did you ever sit there and think, that's going to be me someday? That's what I want to do.
No. I watched, gosh, everybody. I love the Crusher. I love the Bruiser. I liked Vern Gagne. I liked Harley Race a lot. I mean, all people I got to become, you know, very good friends with over the years. But I didn't. I had no idea as a senior in high school that I'd ever end up doing that.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to play football, but when I got to college, I joined a fraternity, and that was it.
I want to go back to your time at college, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned Vern. But Vern would always talk you back into coming back.
It
back
wasn't
around.
really, it wasn't as cordial a conversation as you would think. No,
So it's kind of like
yeah,
my conversations
no, but
with my
I tell
dad
people
sometimes.
this, and as you're, back then they really pushed you to see if you had it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, here and here to be a wrestler. It was more of a physical challenge. The wrestling, you know, would be something you would learn along the way in the ring. It wasn't like we became masters, like the kids today have an opportunity to be trained at the highest level by guys that have been, you know, big time performers in their own time and in their own period of time.
Why is wrestling not for everybody?
You were ringside and grew up on wrestling that is totally different. You know, it's like you're talking to me, I'm saying to you, I couldn't drive 200 miles an hour. At the same time, I could say to you, could you tape a razor blade in your finger and cut your head every night, 350 days a year? So, you know, it's not like it's a hidden secret. It was a brutal way to make a living.
Yeah.
And we wrestled every day. Where the race car drivers or the football players and everybody else, maybe one day a week. And yes, you're practicing it, but we wrestled and traveled every day.
I gotta be honest, I'm not sure I would, if I was 18, that I would try anything that you have done. And what you have done is equally amazing as I've watched your career. But you know, this is a great start to what we're doing here, but I'm getting hungry.
Okay.
So I'm ready.
Oh, the menu.
I'm ready
the
for a little bit of food
for
here. All right.
Menu.
I'm
Gotta
ready
get
for
a
him to
steak,
bring
man.
I'm ready for him to bring it, man.
There you go. I did think I would not wrestle until I got home.
Yeah.
So I was in the hospital for probably 2 weeks, but once I got home and I started walking around, I said, this isn't the end of the world. It hurts, but I mean, I've been hurt worse in the ring already. This is one of the specialties. This is the bacon, peanut butter.
Wow. Who would have thought peanut butter on bacon?
There's something about bacon I don't think is good for you, but it's not that it's not good.
It's not that it's not good.
It's
That's
not.
right. What was wrestling like in 1972 when you started your rookie season? What was that world like?
It was really hard for a young guy to get started because the older veterans didn't want to give up their spot. I mean, that's the way it is in a lot of sports, you know what I mean? Well, not only give up their spots, they just had a spot that, you know, if you didn't get TV time, you didn't get opportunities. Names you remember: George Becker, Johnny Weaver, Swede. I mean,
It's not George Becker and Johnny Weaver. I used to go when I was in the Cub Scouts and watch those guys wrestle.
That's what I'm saying. Greensboro Coliseum. Every other Saturday night. 16,000 people.
Crazy, isn't it? Crazy. Every week.
Every other week. After I crashed in the airplane, they brought in a couple different guys. I ended up staying until I got back on my feet, if I was going to be able to wrestle again.
You mentioned 75 and you mentioned the plane crash.
Mm-hmm.
Your group, the pilot, he perished in the plane crash. But you broke your back in 3 places.
Yes.
And was basically told you wouldn't wrestle again.
Never. Didn't give me a chance.
What were your emotions when you were told that?
I just wouldn't give up. I mean, the doctor probably kept consistent with that statement for maybe 2 months.
Did you ever believe that you would never wrestle again?
I did think I would not wrestle until I got home.
Yeah.
So I was in the hospital for probably 2 weeks, but once I got home and I started walking around, I said, this isn't the end of the world. I've been hurt worse in the ring already. That makes sense? So it wasn't that the pain I was in by any means. It was, in their mind, can it heal to sustain what I do for a living?
Yeah.
But I tell you, the first time I got in the ring, I couldn't get myself to hit the ropes. I definitely couldn't run the turnbuckle, and I couldn't get myself to do what we call a backdrop or flip, land on my back. So the promoter finally said, well, here's what we're gonna do with you. This is how insensitive was it. I'm gonna make you wrestle an hour every night until you take a backdrop, which is where a guy flips you up in the air and you land on your back or get slammed off the top. And so after about 2 weeks of wrestling, Mr. Wrestling, Tim Woods, for an hour every night, I'm talking about like in Fisherville, Virginia, 300 people or wherever, little towns. It didn't put us in big towns because the match was horrible. But I find is when I said, I can't do this anymore, I went there, I'll suffer the consequences, right? Boom, it was fine. But even up until the day I retired, I still landed on my side for a while. I mean,
Wow.
I couldn't get myself to just land flat.
But as you changed the way you wrestled and to grappling and all the ways that became Ric Flair, you also became Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm.
You changed your persona. Nature Boy
Nature
appeared.
Boy.
Nature Boy appeared.
When the dust was all blown away, there was the Nature Boy. Yeah.
Was that part of the wrestling style change?
The original Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers, was, he was obviously a great performer and had a once-in-a-lifetime look. So I took a little bit of him, and then a lot of myself, and then how you just take it sometimes and just roll with it until you just know it's right.
But the robes. Are,
Olivia Walker.
that's what. Where did the robe come from? The robe idea, because the robes
Rogers
are.
wore jackets, and he weren't nearly as tricked out as my robes, but Rogers wore very, very nicely embroidered ring jackets, and I said I like the robe look better. So I just took that and I just said I'm going to spend more, and if somebody got another robe, I spent more till I.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people started copying me then, which was a compliment to me. So I just spent more to make sure my stuff was better, and I couldn't separate Ric Flair from. In other words, I was Ric Flair.
Yeah, that's right. I grew up with Richard Petty.
Yeah.
That's who he became. He was a different Richard Petty when he was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
He was a different Richard Petty in the
Of course.
60s. Those sunglasses, that
Yeah.
cowboy hat, those cowboy boots, and those
Yeah.
big belt buckles, that's who the world saw.
Mm-hmm.
That's who the world wanted to see. And they wanted to see Ric Flair. So you had to become Ric Flair, I feel like, in a lot of ways.
I think maybe if I just wrestled once a week,
Yeah,
I could have gone home. I never got to go home.
that's right.
I was not just Sunday afternoon. I was Sunday night, Sunday afternoon. I was Saturday. I mean, and all of us, not in fairness, when you don't go home, you get used to this lifestyle.
Your trademark is what?
Woo!
And where did that come from?
I got that just driving down the road one night, drinking beer, listening to Jerry Lee Lewis. Recognize the gracious great balls of fire. Woo. A little different, but that's basically where I got it from.
Yeah. We've gotten into robes, we've gotten in all this other stuff, but I'm gonna need robe and slippers here in a minute if I don't get something to eat. I'm gonna have to have the main course.
You get it.
So call your guy and tell him to bring it on over.
I actually was so preoccupied with the thought of dying that I was able to put my personal loss. I didn't like who I had allowed myself to become. Mr. Petty.
Now that is our Fred Flintstone.
There you go.
Wow.
There you go, sir.
We're done here. Man,
That sandwich to die for.
you can't go wrong with mac and cheese.
No.
This is the way you ate in '72 when you started out.
Yeah.
I've heard this my whole life, okay? Heard it from fans, heard it from the media, hear it from so many people. Race car drivers aren't athletes. All you guys do is get in a car and ride around in circles. Knowing how physical your sport is, how hard you trained, how hard the events are, what has been your answer when people look and say, yeah, that's fake, that's not real?
I'll live with the word choreographed.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was in such defense of my business that I'm one of the guys that probably said that about race car drivers.
That's all right.
I also said it about golfers and baseball players. Our guys, they kill themselves.
And don't get the
And
credit
go
that you
through
think
the tables and the chairs and
Yeah.
jump off of 30-foot cages, and as visible and big as our sport is now, global, right? The difference is if Jeff Gordon or a current driver, Chase Elliott, tomorrow, breaks his leg in a flip, right? It's on Sports Center.
Yeah.
A guy in our business is global and as big as it is.
Yeah.
Has major neck surgery, which we have at least one a year, maybe two. It never makes Sports Center, which is to me, I'm over it with some of this stuff.
What is the one or two championship belts, championships that mean the most to you, or Hall of Fames that mean the most to you, Ric Flair?
The younger people will always think of the WWE, but when I won the NWA championship from Dusty Rhodes for his send back from Harley, that was the mecca organization, the National Wrestling Alliance. But now, you know, which I'm just extremely proud of, to see my daughter, who has come to who has taken the whole thing to another level.
The emotion of watching your family, your kids follow you down that same road, knowing that it's 365. You know, 24/7, 365, you're on the road, you're beating it. What were your emotions watching those kids follow you?
Well, the schedules change, so I knew it wouldn't be quite that tough. But more demanding in terms of when you're off, press, international press, radios, podcasts, media, you know what I mean? So it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
And my youngest one, who, you know, left us, we just had the gift and the ability and would have been great, but it didn't work out.
A professional wrestling legend's world shattered today after police confirmed Ric Flair's 25-year-old son was found dead at this South Park hotel.
We've talked about all the highs, and that has to be, and it does, because I know it, I've experienced it too, the lowest moment of your life.
Yes.
And it's the promise of youth. It was the promise of Adam. It was the promise of my son. It was the promise of Reed. To be able to carry that on. How did you deal with that?
He'd just come back from Tokyo to go to WrestleMania. He was doing so well. I thought, boy, here he comes. How cool is that? It haunts me about him. I was drinking already a lot because of the situations that I put myself in personally. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And you face it every day, and it just you drink till you can find something else to laugh about or find something else. It took me 2 years to get where I'm at right now, where I can laugh and have fun about it.
Was there a moment when you said, I've got to come out of this. This turns me around. What turned you around and started you back towards the light?
It would have to be when I woke up from almost dying.
Yeah.
I didn't like who I had allowed myself to become. And it was the easiest way out was to drink. There's no way to get away from guilt, that kind of extreme guilt.
Yeah.
Wondering what I did wrong. We were so close. That was my biggest problem. I mean, I think I was a really good father to him. We did everything together and all that, but I had a hard time disciplining him.
I want to go back to your daughter. If I look at this sport from 72 to 2021, the Flair name is boom.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? I mean, how does that, when you, there she is.
You think of the number that have tried to follow, but not just have followed, but have been on the same level playing field or better.
Yeah.
And my daughter is better than I ever was. She's not reckless. She's very controlled. Her work ethic is unbelievable. I see the good part.
Yeah.
But I don't see any of the bad part. Does that make sense?
That's fair. That's fair.
There's a lot of bad to Ric Flair.
When I think wrestling, the name at the top of the list for me is Ric Flair.
Well, thank you.
What?
I'll take that.
Yeah, man.
That's a big endorsement.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
Could you have ever imagined that?
No. But you know, it's funny. I didn't think past. If it was Saturday, I didn't think past Sunday.
Yeah.
Now, if it's Monday, I might have thought about Friday. It's really hard to keep your name. What a big word that relevant is now, right, in life.
Yes.
free, especially for guys like us.
There is never going to come a time when Ric Flair is not relevant. Thank you, man. Love you.
Thanks. But before you get away, I mean, I have a surprise for you. You had one for me at the top of this. I got one for you now. And it's right back there. See the name of that room right there? The Ric Flair Suite.
Let's go.
Woo! Let's go.
Wow. Listen, that's all I know to say. I'm sitting here holding Ric Flair's.
Lost treasure, man.
Listen, I'm holding your robes
Yep.
with you standing here in the room. I got to play Johnny Cash's guitar at the Martin Guitar Factory.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm holding this. Tell me a little bit about these two robes.
Well, these are actually replicas of two that have been lost along the way.
Along the way.
Yeah.
That happens, man. I
It
misplaced
does.
a lot of
It
stuff,
does,
too.
yep.
I misplaced a lot of stuff. These are beautiful,
How,
dude.
you want to try that on?
Oh, you're going to let me try it on?
Well, if
Yes,
you play
please.
Johnny Cash's guitar, you can try that on.
But, yes, let me try this on.
All right, man?
You got it?
Yep.
Oh, my goodness.
This will officially tell the world that you have styled and profiled. Let me get that collar on her, man.
That collar.
All right.
I'm feeling it.
How Petty. Woo, look at us. Holy good look. Styling and profiling. Woo!
Woo! My man, Ric Flair. Thank
My
you, man.
man.
Nature
How
boy.
Petty. Woo, woo.
Man, what a great day. Got to spend the afternoon with my friend Ric Flair, hear all his old stories. That was special. Also got to wear one of his robes. How cool was that? Shout out to my friend Greg Granlund for the use of this 65 Dodge Dart, maybe one of the coolest cars I've driven in a long, long time. Well, I'm headed home. Thanks for joining us today. I can't wait to see where we go next on the next episode of Dinner Drive.